Hello, everyone. It's Amanda here in Italy. It's 9 o'clock, and that means we're going to have our regular podcast discussion. And I'm glad you're joining me live here in Italy. When you come in, won't you just go down to the chat box? I'll just write in the chat box. If you would like to just leave maybe your first name and where you're joining us from, the city. What's the subject tonight? So, last week we discussed my renovation of a very old house in Italy, and that video's there. I will link it up in the description box later. So the last 5 or 6 videos I've done have all been my experience of starting here in Italy, how my first start in Italy, how I found a job, how I got a house, whatever. But it was a long time ago. It was in 2002, 22 years ago, maybe. So yeah, lots has changed in those 20 years. But yeah, most people who join me on the live really want to know what it's like to be in Italy, to live in Italy. A lot of people come here on holiday, obviously. But tonight I chose a subject, and you can probably see it in the title. Go back to your country. And these words seem quite harsh to most people. And they have been said to me on occasion. Most people believe that everybody in Italy is super friendly, and in Europe in general. And what I want to talk about tonight is this subject. So, if you're new here, my name is Amanda. I live in Italy, and we discuss living in Italy. I've done many videos on citizenship and how to get permanent residence, all of that. This live is not going to be an instructional video. This is literally just going to be us chatting about culture shock. Those of you who've lived in another country, what does that feel like? That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I thought I'd get straight to it. If you stay with us until the end, in the end, I will give you some idea of what we're going to be chatting about during the next few weeks, and the direction that the podcast is going to take. But I've been asked to discuss this subject a few times, and I've kind of steered away from it because I believe that everybody may have a different experience in a country. People come to Italy at different stages of their life, for different reasons. Some are married, some are not married, some are retired, some are working still. So there's all of that. So I tend to not want to generalize about how life could be in Italy. So people would say, how is it in Italy? Is it easy to fit in? Whatever. These are just very generalized statements. They depend on many things. Can you speak the language? Do you even need to speak the language? Are you completely self-contained? Do you have enough money that you can go back every 6 months and see your family in the States or Australia or England or wherever it is that you originally came from in the English-speaking world, or maybe in South America, wherever you've come from? And so all of these things play a big part in how you will adapt, and how much culture shock you will feel, and how much time you've allowed yourself to fit in wherever you are. So we're going to talk about all of this tonight, and we're going to do it through the lens of what I've experienced. And I want to address some things that YouTubers have been discussing in the last few weeks, and the views of other people who live in Europe, YouTubers. So since I became a YouTuber quite a few years ago, there's a very tight-knit community in YouTube, because we make content, we make these videos for free. It's hard work sometimes, and there's certain subjects that we always ask to speak about, and sometimes we tend not to do it because perhaps people don't want to get into this deep sort of level. They just want to know, show me all the beautiful houses that you've seen, and pizza, the lovely food, the beautiful art, the lovely piazzas in Italy. And I've done lots of that. My channel is full of it. And I still love that. And it's the reason that why I came to Italy in the first place, and the reason I'm still here. Okay, so tonight, what motivated this was a friend of mine put up a post on his channel saying, why don't you go back to your country? And this was shouted at him across a public space. He lives in Europe, he's American, and a lot of people, when he spoke about this on his channel, were really shocked that there's this kind of, what would you call this, bigotry, xenophobia. But, you know, there have been rumblings across Europe all this year because, you know, in Spain, a lot of Barcelona, particular cities, there'd been anti-tourist protests. Tourists have been sprayed with water. People have shouted at them. And this can be for quite a few reasons. So let's get into some of those reasons. Some of those reasons can be like Portugal, which had to change its golden visa program and change its non-habitual resident NHR program, which brought lots of digital nomads to Portugal, and they had a special low tax incentive to bring people there. Portugal wanted to develop its economy, and those people enjoyed that. And then, of course, Brexit happened. So at least for the English people, stuff changed. But for Americans, it was always the same. But what I'm trying to say is that local people couldn't afford to rent a house anymore at the rates they would have got, or even buy a house, because of Airbnb. And Airbnb in the last 15 years, maybe even 20, has exploded all across the world. But we're talking about Italy, Europe, Portugal, Spain, France, the countries that I cover. And so in this particular case in Portugal, people, you know, said, why don't you go back to your country? Because some of the Portuguese locals have become fed up that they don't have the special tax declaration. They feel that they're discriminated against as locals because they don't have this tax incentive that these digital nomads, new people who've come to live there have, and they push the rents up. I remember when I first went to live, I lived in Portugal on and off, doing various work projects a couple of years back, before COVID. The rents were quite reasonable when I was going there on holiday. I know, because I'd been traveling back and forth for about 5 years, doing, you know, just short trips and then staying there as a European. And I noticed like a 400% increase in the rents. It was really, really huge, the amount of time. Hi, when you come in, will you like the video? Won't you just pop your name down in the description box so I can welcome you and greet you and say hi? You don't have to participate if you don't want to in the chat box, but I like to know where you're joining me from, because that's always fun for us. And people join from all over the world each week, so welcome. If you're brand new, my name's Amanda and I'm coming to you from Italy. We're talking about culture shock tonight and how that is for various people. So as I was saying, this Portugal experience made me realize how much the rents had just escalated so hugely. And a lot of this was driven by Airbnb and, you know, digital nomads now deciding that they wanted to leave. Let's take the UK, for example, because of Brexit. They wanted to be in Europe and they wanted to get in before the cutoff date came. Anyway, and there was some backlash towards this, and it took a couple of years, and eventually Portuguese locals lobbied their government and said, you've got to do away with this golden visa story. You've got to do away with all these people who are coming in and renting these Airbnbs for such a huge price that nobody wants to rent their houses out, the owners of the homes, to locals because they can get so much more on Airbnb. And so there was a backlash, and people started to be a little bit anti-immigrant, anti-tourist, and one can see their point in some way. And this happened recently in Spain, and it's still happening across Spain. I chatted today to a woman who said her daughter, who's Italian, cannot find an apartment in Spain. She went to Spain to join some friends who had studied there and decided to stay. She just can't find anywhere to rent. And in some way, this mass tourism that's happened in Europe does impact the locals. But we're going to talk about my experience today. So what drove me to want to talk about culture shock when I've steered away from it on my channel, although I get asked it a lot? What's it like? Did you feel culture shock? How are you received? How are you received now? Okay. So I'm going to start this out for those of you who haven't been watching me a long time to tell you that I've been fluent. I speak fluent Italian probably for the last, let's say, it took me about 2 years to speak it quite fluently, and then 5 to be where I can have a discussion and be in a room with 10 people and they can all be talking at once, and I'm not at a disability. When you speak a foreign language, you will always speak it differently from a local. I'm told by my Italian friends that my Italian accent is pretty good. I don't have the typical, way of speaking Italian that us Anglo-Saxons have. But I've been here a long time. I've worked in Italy, and so I've been forced from the very early days. If you want to hear my story, you can go back and watch the video before. So I'll list those videos down in order of their chronology in my description box if you want to go back and watch that, so I don't repeat myself. And yeah, so I can speak fluent Italian and how that's been. But it's happened to me more than once, and possibly I noticed it more once I became fluent, because in the early days when I was in Lucca and I couldn't really speak Italian, the Italians just seemed so friendly, everybody, but I didn't really know what was being said. I had no idea. So you just try and read what you think the tone of the conversation and the group is. But I've noticed over the years that whenever I try and stand up for myself, or I defend myself in a situation where I've gone to pay for a service, or I'm in some bureaucratic office and they just fobbing me off, or the 5 people tell me something completely different, they all contradict each other. I'm now, and I have been for some years, I'm able to actually contrast what they're saying and say, well, what's going on? Because she said that and he said that, and what is the actual facts? And this is what happened last week, and that. So I'm able to, let's call it, argue in Italian, certainly to stand my ground in Italian and to stand up for myself. And whenever I've done that, I get this distinct feeling of, why did you go back to your own country? Exactly what the title of the video is. Go back to your own country. It's fine when we're telling you that you're cute and you're lovely in a shop and whatever, and everyone's smiling, but now you're telling me in Italian that I haven't done the maximum, or the job that I've done isn't up to snuff or whatever. Even if you're doing it in a very subtle way, they're very, very sensitive to this, and you might get these words shouted at you. Why don't you go back to your own country? And now, at this stage of my life, I'm able to give them a retort back. And the retort would be, this is my country. I'm an Italian citizen, so no, I'm not going anywhere. But for many years, when these situations arose, and they do arise, let me tell you, this is not just Italy. This can be in Spain, it can be in Portugal, it can be anywhere. It could be in any country, by the way. I'm just picking on Europe this evening because we're discussing Europe, because that's what my channel is about. And I remember when I wasn't able to really, pick up the nuances, and sometimes it's very hidden. This kind of xenophobia, this kind of extreme tribalism. That's what I call it, extreme tribalism. It can be hidden, and it's particularly bad in a group. So one on one, I would say just about. And I know hundreds of Italians. I know some of them on an acquaintance level. I've worked with many, many of them as a colleague for many years, so I know them very well. We've eaten together, we've gone on outings together, we've had coffee together, we've spoken for hours together. So I know them pretty well. We've taken trips together. And I know hundreds of Italians, literally, um, different levels of friendship, different levels of knowing them. And I would say that one on one, Italians are extremely welcoming, and I've never had an issue integrating. Somebody's written something. Oh, sorry. Can't really read. It's too small. Oh, hi. Hi, Paisley. You're joining again. Good evening. Okay. So, yeah, I want to know your guys' experience. So please feel free. Write your comments as you're going along, and I'll read them out. Welcome back. And it it used to be extremely hurtful to me because I wasn't always able to go and see my family regularly. I was working pretty much nonstop. And as the years went by and I made good friends, they would invite me for Easter because, to be with their family, or Christmas or whatever. And I used to love those occasions. I mean, when I first met my husband, I was invited to the first Christmas by his family. It was a bit of culture shock because I couldn't speak Italian. That was really early days. But you muddle through. And I've always said it's almost easier when you can't speak the language because ignorance is bliss. So you don't know what's going on around you. You don't know what the impression is, what they're saying about you. But when you're as fluent as I am now, and they start with this kind of xenophobic situation. And it happened to me today. And perhaps that's why I decided to discuss. Also, as I mentioned, my fellow YouTuber has a channel, and this has been happening to him in Europe. He's an American. I'm not an American. I'm English, but it doesn't matter where you're from. It's pretty nasty when this happens. So I guess the question is there a big culture shock issue for people to come to Italy? And I'm going to answer it this way. I'm first going to tell you what happened today, and it can happen in any environment. As I say, usually when I stick up for myself and it's in a bureaucratic environment, and you tell them that, they said this and you said that, the answer is almost always, why don't you go back to your country? It drives me absolutely batty. But now I just see that as an occasion to inform them and to educate them that, in fact, this is my country. I'm a citizen and I ain't going nowhere, baby. I ain't going nowhere. So you go back. And also the funny part is that in Italian, let's say the lingua franca of the street, you would send somebody back to their town. You would say, go back to your town. It was a common street insult. And it's the same word, paese, right? And so it has that double meaning. In other words, go back to where you came from, that kind of insult. And it also has a double meaning of country. So it can mean town or country. Anyway, my point is, this is what happened today. So I went down a beautiful day. We've had 4 beautiful days of sunshine. It's been a gorgeous autumn. Went down through my lovely town that I adore so much. I'm very happy living here. And there was a charity. I really miss London because I love the charity shops when you want a coat, and I love, Scottish tweed and things. You don't always want to buy something brand new off the rack. And also, on a budget, sometimes it's nice to find a beautiful quality coat or whatever. And it's been well loved, sometimes never even worn. It's just sat in a cupboard. Anyway, so I went there and had a little ruffle around, had a look. And the usual ladies that I know weren't there. There was a group of 4 ladies, sort of all huddled together, and they were all sort of moving together. And there was the one kingpin of these 4 ladies, and then there was 2 other ladies on that side. So there were like 2 different sort of sections of this outdoor street shop, a pop-up shop, a charity thing of coats and jackets and lovely sweaters and things, all quality Italian stuff. There was some Valentino pieces, lovely stuff, okay? And then some shoes and handbags and stuff over there. And I love this sort of thing. I love going to these kind of markets. And so anyway, so I started chatting and that, and this woman who was the kingpin of these 4, you could just see, that she raised her eyebrows when I spoke, and there was the eye rolling, and yeah, and I at first I just kind of let it slide, and it started to annoy me a little bit, but I thought whatever. And then when I came to discussing what the prices were, because they're just sort of on a general rack over there for 20 or 15 or whatever. So I came with the things and I said, what are these? One of them was saying 10, another one was saying 15, the other one was saying 20. And then they started to argue among themselves. And I said, look, when you decide what the price is, just let me know. And oh my God, they went ballistic. And so the one nasty woman, she started to say, well, what do you mean? And she sort of, yeah. Anyway, I know of her because I've encountered her before in other situations. And she kind of influenced all the others. And they started what I can only describe as a bullying. So every time I asked something, they all started a big sort of investigation as to what I might want, as if I was so weird and my request was so odd that, and it was very uncomfortable. And I came quite close to actually just leaving the stuff and going. But then she said, okay, no, okay, this is okay. So we settled on the price. And I didn't have, they only take money, they won't take a card. So I was going home to get my card and then go to the ATM to draw the money to come back. Okay. So I asked them, could you put it in a bag and I'll be back? I mean, I walk past them 3 times a day. Yeah, okay, one of them decided, but there was always this sort of undercurrent, and I wasn't that happy. Anyway, off I went, got the money, blah, 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 came back, and she was still there. And once again, there was this argument. So then they wanted to go back into the bag where the money had already been calculated. It was €48 for these 2 sweaters and this lovely tweed jacket. I love a tweed country jacket. And now they were insinuating that I wasn't paying the right. And I said, look, you've set the price. You've told me this. We've written it on a piece of paper. It's €48. Here's the bag. I'm just coming to pay for it. Right? And they said, oh, yeah. And they sort of, and it was always driven by this quite nasty woman. At the end of the day, okay. So there was another tweed jacket, and I thought I might get it for a friend because it was too small for me, but it looked lovely. And I said, well, if you throw this one in, then can I take that one for €10? And they said, no, we'll negotiate. It'll be about 15. So anyway, I do all of this. So all this stuff has now been chucked in this bag. And when I'm about to go now, I looked through it because I saw there was this Valentino jacket there. And I thought it looks a lot like the one I've just taken. So I went into the bag just to check how many items there were. And she shouts at me, why are you ruffling through the bag? And I thought, I've paid for this. It's my merchandise. I've got it. Why are you interrogating me? So I said to her, what do you mean? And then that was it. That was the final straw. And they'd been carping at me this group of 4, these nasties. And I said, if I want to look through the bag of the things to check that I have the right things, can I do that? And she said, no, just go. Anyway, I told them exactly what I thought. It was one of those, why don't you go back to your country moments? And I I said to them, I don't accept your disrespect. I've come here, I've been polite to all of you. I'm buying these things. You couldn't decide between all of you how much the price of the stuff was. I bought it. Is there a problem? Because please inform me what is your problem. Anyway, I left them and I said, look, please, you go your way, I'll go mine. So off I took. I got home and I discovered that that second tweed jacket that I picked up, that she was so keen to charge me an extra €5 for, I hadn't had time to check it because they wouldn't even let me go into the bag and just look through what I had. No, I get home and it's got 2 huge holes on the back, and she knew that. I'm convinced she knew that. And that's why she was keen to push it on me and let me go. So I thought, no. Okay, I was already upset. I really came home and I thought, I'm not going to be insulted by these people. Anyway, so I put that jacket with the holes back in the bag and off I went back down there. When I got back down there, lunchtime had just passed. And so the nasty, the ugly sisters, like Cinderella, exactly Cinderella, the four, was there 3 or 4 ugly sisters in Cinderella? I don't remember, but these were the 4 ugly sisters. Just rude and nasty for no reason whatever, except that they could tell I was English and a foreigner. And I'm so stupid that I couldn't possibly know who Valentino was, or, the quality or anything. I'm just an ignorant idiot. So basically, I go back there, they're not there, and the 2 other ladies who were on that side are there, and they couldn't have been more different. They were kind, thoughtful, sweet. I showed them the holes, and they said, no, absolutely. Without any question, they gave me back my money. Anyway, we started chatting, and they couldn't have been more different. And I said to them, I don't know what happened this morning, but I came here, and they were so difficult. They wouldn't let me check the jacket. So I went home with it, and it had holes in it. And they said, oh, you mean that woman? She's terrible. We hate. We hate. Because they were talking between each other, and she said, which one is she talking about? And she said to her, the one I don't like, that woman. Anyway, they couldn't have been sweeter. We had a lovely chat. We looked through all the stuff. They were saying, oh, do you like that sweater, this color, whatever. They couldn't have been nicer. So I landed up spending the money they gave me back, buying another lovely herringbone, long, not quite like this, but sort of as long as this, but all herringbone, really pretty sweater in black and white. And so anyway, they got the money back from me. And there was this beautiful, beautiful scarf. It's cashmere, but super soft. And I love Bordeaux. Bordeaux is such a color that I love. And it's all the rage this year, Bordeaux. So I got this, I don't know if it's coming out very well on this video, but anyway, it's kind of got this lovely sort of tobacco and Bordeaux scarf. It's cashmere. So yes, I took that. I said, let me take that. And they threw in another more wintry scarf for me. So I got this beautiful scarf instead. And I came home and I was quite satisfied after that. But that was an experience that happened to me with these 4 nasty, horrible people. And I got home and I felt quite awful. So I'm telling you this experience for this reason, to let you know that it can happen. And generally, it's happened to me when I've been in an official situation and they won't accept whatever documents they've already told me to bring, and I know that I'm in the right, and I have to convince them, and they start getting shitty, and they start getting a little bit tribal and trying to say to you, this is how it is. You go back to, it's kind of like negotiating with the tax office. That's the kind of attitude. Yeah, so I didn't expect it today. But I got to thinking about my friend who'd just done his YouTube thing on these people shouting at him in Portugal, go back to your own country. And what do you do if you're living in a country where you feel this xenophobia? Now, I have to say, I mean, most of you who've watched me know that I'm pretty happy in Italy. Paisley says, lovely, lovely scarf. Yeah, it was a very uncomfortable situation. And it's quite hurtful. It doesn't matter whether you know you're in the right, whether you know you haven't done anything wrong, whether you feel comfortable because it's your town. And in my case, it's my country. I'm an Italian citizen now. It's unnecessary and it's unsettling. And because you don't have all your family and your connections around you like they do, perhaps you do sometimes feel the odd one out. So, anyway, I experienced this today, and it made me even more compassionate for people who perhaps don't have the language skills to argue back. Um, my hair's getting incredibly long. I need to go and have it cut short. It's so long on top now that it goes a bit wild every now and then. So, yeah, I need to go and have it cut short again. So yeah, it made me really think about and really have empathy for people who are stuck in a situation. And I've had friends in Italy that left Italy for this reason. So this is what I'm going to say to you. When I assist people to move to Italy, it's not because I think it's the only country in the world that's wonderful. People have different impressions of different countries. That's okay. But I want to say, and let me clarify, it depends what stage you're at. So if you're a single person, and by far the biggest majority of people who ask me about moving to Italy, about the Italian dream, about buying a house here, about all that kind of stuff, by far the biggest group are single women, and they're normally single women who are newly retired or in their 50s and are starting a new life. It's kind of the Frances May's under the Tuscan sun generation, or, eat, pray, love sort of generation. People who are divorced or never married and they want to start a new life in Italy, and perhaps some of them already have their pension payout and want to just buy a little place, do it up, have a lovely life, eat the beautiful food, maybe fall in love with an Italian man, all that romantic stuff, okay? So there's those group of people. Then there's another group of people who are couples, and maybe they are retired and they want to come to Italy and again live the dream, buy a little house or rent a house in Sicily and live by the sea and do different from what they did every day in their normal life and their normal job. And there's those group of people, okay? And then there's another group of people who are the most problematic because they're the ones that stand to be the most hurt by xenophobia. Because they in the working group. So they're the digital nomads who want to come to Italy because they just love Italy and they want to try and work here. And when you need to earn a living, you're in a much more vulnerable situation because if you come here with your husband and you're retired or your boyfriend or whatever he is, or if you're a man with your partner, whatever, you could be a gay couple, you come here. So there's the two of you. There's two of you standing against the world. You both speak the same language, hopefully, and you can be a little bit protected from this extreme tribalism that you might meet in Europe. So in a way, there's some kind of buffer. And in particular, what I've noticed, if one of the couples is Italian, they might sort of soften everything and, explain and maybe be the advocate if you're going to an office and you have to ask for forms or whatever. They might be the person who tries to make that easier. But even so, even if you do have an Italian partner or a Spanish partner or a French partner, if you're the immigrant to Europe, there are moments when you feel like you're not being tolerated, that you're being, what's the right word? You're being put up with, basically. You're annoying people. Maybe your language skills don't allow them to explain to you what they want to explain to you in the way they want to do it. They don't have the time. They're irritable. They're trying to do their job and you holding up the queue. Whatever it is, it can be really, really difficult and hurtful. But the more people you have that you can go home to and chat about it or talk about it, if you have a partner, whatever, then better. And if you're retired, you don't need to do all of the stuff in a working environment of going to the tax office. So maybe you have your little house and you and your husband, partner, whatever, come and you go out to eat and you go walk to the beach and you do whatever. And maybe you get sick of it after 6 months and you go back for 6 months to go and see your family and maybe get all your little medical procedures done or whatever. This can be a highly successful way of having the Italian dream. And most of the people I know who do it this way because they have the means, they have the money, or they're at the stage of life where they come here, they spend 6 months or whatever it is, depending on your status. So if you're an Italian citizen, you can come and go as you please. I have a friend in Australia, more than one friend actually in Australia, who come to Italy. They have Italian citizenship. So they come to their home here in Sicily. They enjoy it for a couple of months. When they're fed up and they're tired and winter's approaching, they go back to Australia to their family there. And then when they're fed up with Australia and they need a break, they come back to Italy. This can be a wonderful way, but it requires that you're at a certain stage of life, that you have the means to do that. And then it can be okay, because if you do feel a bit lonely, we're talking about this group that I spoke about. The majority of people who ask me for help are single women of a certain age. But it's okay. So let's say you get a bit lonely in Sicily, enjoying this beautiful thing every day. You go back to your family in Australia. And then when you're all familied up and, you're dealing with your aged parents and all your friends are around, then maybe it's nice to go back to Sicily and have, a couple of months where you just have to take care of your own wants and needs. But so it's entirely dependent. I can't give an off-pat answer for everybody. It's entirely dependent on you, your situation, the stage you're in. Are you in a relationship? Are you not in a relationship? Are you single? But by far the biggest risk, I would say, of feeling this culture shock is if you are single, because so many of the single women who write to me and say, please, can you help me find my dream home, or tell me how you managed, how did you find it? It concerns them, and it should concern them, because you're going to be here every day. And I always say to people, don't go and live halfway up a mountain, because you're going to need to go and be checked at the hospital. Even if you're super healthy, you're going to need to have a pap smear sometimes. You're going to need to have a mammography. And you're going to have to do something, and you don't want it to be a major hassle. So yeah, it's fine because you found an area where this house is cheap, but there's no friends there. There's old people living there, and they can't speak your language. You can't speak to them. They're not going to invite you over for dinner. You're a single woman. Why would they invite you over for dinner? So I think one has to be a little bit realistic. But even although I have tons of Italian friends and also English-speaking friends here in Italy, I have moments when the culture shock actually gets to me. This was one moment that I spoke to you. And I've seen so many friends leave Italy. Somebody wrote to me last week and said, they're a gay couple, that they were they hated Italy. And one of them is Italian, one of the partnership, they're a gay partnership. He said he hated it. And eventually his partner said to him, we have to leave. We have to leave. They were tolerated. The people were nasty to them. They imagined it was because they were gay. I'm not so sure if it was because maybe, I don't know, the people who were they discriminating against them because I don't know. But I know I've been discriminated against, and I'm not gay. And even as a married couple, I was discriminated against because I didn't speak Italian in the early days. So what I'm trying to say is that it really depends on you, but it's always a situation that I feel very empathetic towards, because it really is awful when you are singled out. Paisy said, I think what what you are explaining is a good option and not necessarily being a permanent resident. Yeah, but it's not always possible for everybody. So some people dream, they don't have the means. So let's take an example. Somebody living in London, they're fed up. They dream of coming to live in Italy, but they can't sort of just hop between the two. And there's another thing to consider, and that is if you don't have Italian citizenship, you have to apply for a visa to be here, which means that for your first year, if you're given that elective visa, you've got to earn enough money, have enough passive income, because you can't work here. And not being able to work here, that's another big issue that people overlook. It's very isolating. If you're just stuck and you're just on your own and you're not meeting anybody, but let's say you have the means to come on an elective visa, then you've got to stay here for that year and you've got to justify to the authorities all the way. You can't hop back and forth because you're given that year's visa. And let's say you're in your second year. A friend of mine is doing this in France. She's, now been accepted. She has her permanent visa. She has her social security, her pension, and she lives off that. And it's good, and it can be great. And so not everybody's the same. Another person wrote to me last week, and they're absolutely miserable in France. They can't stand the French. They feel that they can't get a decent doctor. The medical service isn't good. And it doesn't help if I say, hold on, but France is top in the world for their medical services. For them, it doesn't matter because that's not their experience, and they're miserable. And this particular person wants to come to Italy, and she lived in Italy for a short period way back in the past. And she said, oh, I want to go to Florence because I'm sure the people in Florence are much nicer. And this is my thing. I don't know. I don't know what your experience is going to be there. Pretty much if you're miserable where you are now, the chances of you being miserable when you move are pretty high because, the old saying, where you are, that's where you are. You take yourself with you. But I do understand that sometimes you just don't fit into the culture. And in her case, she can't stand the French. And conversely, I love the French. Whenever I visit, I don't live in France permanently, but whenever I visit, I find, despite what all the legends are that the French refuse to speak English, that they're rude, and I find them completely friendly, very professional, and very kind and polite to me. So it really depends on you, right? So this culture shock always comes when you least expect it. And let's say you're lonely and you're single and you've moved here and you had all these dreams of meeting the love of your life or whatever, or I don't know, finding a job as a tourist guide or whatever unrealistic dream you had, which at the time seemed completely realistic. It doesn't work out and you realize you've got to go back and you're miserable. And in this case, it is not a failure because you have one life to live. It's not a failure. When people come and they say to me, I'm miserable. I made a mistake. I bought a house in the wrong town. I should have rented for 6 months, or whatever it is. Oh, I had this relationship, but it didn't last. It was just a sort of flash in the pan. It's over. And now I have to go back to America because I'm miserable. I have no friends here. And I'm not being invited out. I'm not being accepted. This can happen. And it is the risk of being an immigrant. I know many people call themselves expats. I don't refer to myself as an expat. I don't see how I'm different from any other immigrant. I immigrated into Italy. Now I'm a permanent resident and now I'm a citizen, but I was an immigrant. I don't see what's the difference calling yourself an expat? You're still living in a culture that isn't your original culture. Let me see what's being said here. We all need to do self-talk and develop a thick skin in regard to other people's judgments. This is very, very true. It's very true. And that's exactly what I did today. I actually patted myself on the back for standing up for myself with these 4 people sort of literally bullying me in a shopping situation where I'm actually giving them business. It's ridiculous. And I said to myself, don't get upset. I spoke to a dear friend of mine here. We didn't know each other when we were young, but we grew up in the same place. And, you know, we are good friends and we support each other here. And I said to her, it was just so disappointing. And she said, yeah, but look at it this way. You met those other two afterwards and they were lovely. And I said, yeah, that is exactly true. And that's what you have to do. You have to say to yourself, screw those other ugly the three ugly sisters from Cinderella, screw them, and just focus on the good. Because when people do this, it's easy to generalize and say, oh, Italians are not friendly, Italians are horrible, I was miserable in Italy because the people didn't accept me. But it's a generalization. And generalizations are never that accurate and never that good, because in the end, I actually broke a glass today and had to pick up the little bits, and I think I might have scratched my finger. Anyway, been in the wars. So yeah, but I feel strongly about this because having had this shouted at me in the past, go back to your own country, and my friend who runs his YouTube blog, it happened to him this week. People can be nasty online as well. I've always said that I'm incredibly blessed to have the YouTube community that I have. I wish I had more subscribers. I wish I had more views. If you haven't subscribed it, or if you want to send my videos to someone who might be useful, that's always great. I always appreciate all the comments. Please like the video. This all helps YouTube to suggest. But being a YouTube content provider can also be quite a lonely, difficult job. And so it's wonderful to have this community of other people who have their podcasts and their stuff, and then we sort of help each other. So I felt strongly, for him having been, shown such xenophobia and told, why didn't you go back to your own country? But people online can be incredibly difficult. I noticed in a Facebook group, there's a whole bunch of moving to Italy Facebook groups. I've spoken about these before, and they are policed, and there's some admins, and the admin write the most horrendous comments. Here's an example. Okay, I'm a woman of, 65. I've been thinking of coming to Italy. I've always dreamed of it. I'm wondering what kind of town has a few English speakers. Just this is what they ask all the time. Generally, in the beginning, I'd probably like to rent before I buy. Which towns would you suggest? And it's always the same answer. And I can hear these Italians hissing. I don't know why these Italians are in the group moving to Italy, but hey, what can I say? Anyway, there they are. And they always write the same thing. You'll need a visa. Do you have rights to a visa? Do you have an EU passport? That's their answer all the time. And then whatever this person writes back of, oh, I hadn't thought about that, I was just making some ideas, they will just hit back at them over and over again. And it can be really nasty. And haters online can be really, really nasty. And I have YouTube friends who've had the most horrendous comments written about them, and people nastily saying, why did you get Italian citizenship if you wanted to move elsewhere in Europe? You got Italian citizenship, then you went to live in Spain. Well, European Union passport allows you to live in Europe. All you have to do is register and get a job, and obviously have enough money to support yourself. Otherwise, you can't get residence. But that's their prerogative. That's their choice. I mean, people get so bent out of shape and nasty. And I think some of it is jealousy. Some of it is that I can't do this. I can't go and start over again in Italy or Portugal or Spain or France. And so why should she? And, and people can be nasty and very hurtful in comments. And whilst it's easy to say, just ignore it, it's just a hater on YouTube who's sending this comment, I'm blessed. I think I can count over the years. I've maybe had one or two lukewarm comments. I've never had real hate comments. I have lovely, lovely people who encourage me and are super, and some of them have been following me for years. So I'm incredibly blessed, and I don't want to jinx that, but sometimes people can be really nasty and cruel and horrible. What's being said here? Maybe the nasty stepsister was jealous of you, Amanda. Yeah, exactly what I thought. You're so nice and pleasant and charming. How kind. Thank you so much. Precisely my point above jealousy. I think, you can make people jealous just by showing up and smiling. Some people are just damn miserable. Maybe their marriage is on the rocks. I don't know. Maybe their life didn't turn out the way they wanted to. You're just being yourself. My life has been incredibly difficult in parts. I mean, my Italian life, if I look at the hurdles I've jumped over and whatever, if I had to stop and sort of feel sorry for myself and think, oh my goodness, I wouldn't be here. I would have left years ago. The point is that just by showing up and being open and smiling and honest and wearing your heart on your sleeve, some people hate it. They just hate it because they're miserable. They're miserable, or they, as I say, I don't know, they could be having a problem at home, or maybe their lives are just crap. I don't know. But anyway, I have learned that, one should always be aware that you don't know what people are going through. Sometimes people are suffering in silence. They could be ill. They could be going through terrible stuff. But when people are openly nasty, it's quite often jealousy, as we mentioned, as Paisley just pointed out. And on these Facebook groups, it's 99% of the time jealousy. And as soon as this person says, oh, but I've got Italian citizenship, so I can come to Sicily and just spend 6 months or whatever. Oh, no, I don't have any rights. So what I'll do is I'll come for 5 months and then I'll go elsewhere and spend the other half of the year because, Schengen rules say that you can only spend 183 days or whatever in one, and then you've got to leave the Schengen area. And okay. And then they resent them for that reason because they don't have, they're stuck somewhere, I don't know, in their miserable life. And this person is able to come and enjoy 6 months in Sicily or whatever and then go somewhere else. And so whatever the response is in this group of this person who's dreaming of Europe, be it France or Italy or whatever, there's some nasty person in the background saying you can't, why should you? What they should actually say is, if I can't, why should you? And you've got to read between the lines. And I used to be in a couple of Facebook groups a couple of years ago, and I removed myself from all of them because I couldn't take the nastiness. And as much as I was being helpful and saying to a person, have you thought about that? Saying to people and saying, message me if you need any help, I'll try and help. Oh, then you get a backlash from the group admin who says, why are these people asking these stupid questions? Why are you in the group is what I want to say, because you clearly don't have any need for this group. This group is called Moving to Italy for Women Over, 35 or 40. You're Italian. You're living here. Why are you in this group? Why are you here clawing at people all day? I mean, don't you have anything better to do? You obviously have a lot of time on your hands to really go through each person and interrogate them. I mean, what are you, the immigration police? And so, so I removed myself from just about every Facebook group. I've always been in the French group as well because I traveled to France and I've really had so much lovely information from people who've helped me to find places to stay in France and cities that I never thought of visiting and villages that I've now visited. So it can be a great thing, Facebook, and it can also be a nightmare, I guess. But anyway, so back to culture shock. When it happens, it can really put you at a huge quandary because then you start to question all your life choices. and think, what am I going to do now? As I mentioned, these people that I spoke to this week, the gay couple, his partner Italian said, we've got to leave Italy because, they were living in the south. They had to bribe people to get their permissions for the things they were doing on their house. It became very nasty. And strangely enough, they said to me, as soon as they got to Portugal, they were welcomed, they were loved, they're as happy as Larry. And yeah, sometimes you're just in the wrong forest, and you can try and do whatever you like to make that forest more livable. I always say you must be where you're celebrated. Who wants to be tolerated? I don't want to be tolerated. Do you? I don't. I want to be celebrated, and I want to be in an environment where I can be myself, where I can shine. I want to be able to shine, you know. And one of the life coaches that I really enjoy, he's very unconventional. He swears quite a lot, but he's hilarious. And he said the other day, I'm going to have to not say the swear words because my channel has never been reported for anything, so I can't possibly swear. And I won't because, YouTube will take down your video. I don't know how the others get away with it, but I can't and I won't. But he basically said, I'll put it this way, the sun doesn't give a damn if it blinds you when it's shining. And I loved that because it really made me think, why must I hide my light so that I make others who are miserable comfortable? I'm going to be myself. I'm going to shine. I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to be open, and I'm going to be welcoming to others. And if me shining my light makes somebody else uncomfortable, so be it. As my friend said, the sun doesn't give a damn if it blinds you when it shines. So I think sometimes, yeah, just ignore jealous haters. So anyway, I was happy to hear from this friend in Portugal who said, he they were as happy as Larry, and they were hated. What does this say? Little secret. I'm jealous that you got the lovely tweed jackets. Let your light shine. Oh, yeah, the jackets are stunning. Shall I go and show you one of them? I think I might show you. They're so pretty. One second. Let me go and get them. Well, here I am. So this is one. I put this on my model. Can you see it? Yeah. I love it because it's got this gorgeous soft collar and these gorgeous buttons. And it is the most beautiful. It's proper tweed, Scottish tweed. It's the most gorgeous jacket. I love it. Tell me if you can see it. And we can't show her naked on TV, on YouTube. That'll be YouTube will report me. You see? It says authentic tweed. Absolutely love it. It's a gorgeous color. It's kind of olivey. You see what a lovely tweed it is? It's a herringbone tweed. So, yeah, I love it. It's just so elegant. Let's try it on. Let me put this one on and then I'll show you the other one. So I guess it was worth these two dreadful women just to get what I wanted. Isn't this gorgeous? I love this tweed jacket. I love a country look with some pants at my boots. Yeah, I think I'm going to love it. Really love that one. And then I'll show you the other one, which is a Valentino. It's a big slouchy one because I sometimes like a men's tweed jacket because you can wear it on top of a sweater in winter. So this is the Valentino one. It's kind of like an olivey, it's like green. You see, it's a lovely soft tweed. This is Valentino, never been worn, beautifully lined. See. See if I can. I don't know what this camera's picking up. So this is a proper Valentino. And yeah. So I guess it was worth being insulted by the ugly sisters to have this beautiful Valentino. So this one's a little bit more slouchy, but I still love it. And they're going to be stunning. This one's lovely because you can wear it over a sweater with your jeans or your nice riding pants. And isn't it pretty? I love it. Such a lovely tweed. Look, beautiful Valentino. Yeah, very elegant and brand new, never been touched. So the shoulders are a bit big for me, but that's okay because I'll wear a sweater and it's slouchy and nice and long because it's cut for a man, But isn't it pretty? Really love it. So yeah. So there we are. I guess you didn't expect to come online and have a fashion show. Yeah. So I'm very happy with my purchases and my gorgeous cashmere scarf, which is Bordeaux, one of my favorite colors, and this lovely tobacco shade. So this would also go beautifully with this, you see? Yeah. So anyway, so I guess all's well that ends well. And going back to culture shock, sometimes you just have to stick up for yourself and be your own best advocate. And if you watch this back later, let me know if you've been in that situation where maybe you're just traveling on holiday and you had culture shock about the food. Maybe I know a lot of people, my ex-parents-in-law, or we went to London for a week and various other countries, and the only thing they wanted to know when we got back, and this is Italian bigotry, was how did we manage without a B-day? They weren't interested where we went, what we saw, what we ate, any of the culture, just how did we manage without a B-day? And that's a very common ignorant comment from Italians. How could you go to a country and not have a B-day? Because Italians apparently can't live without a B-day. You're a beautiful model. How kind you are. Yeah, very hard to find that quality. And as I say, it's a Valentino, so I'm thrilled. So I guess, yeah. Anyway, so you could be on holiday and experience culture shock. And I had a colleague, a friend, she went back to the States. I worked with her in the early years. We both taught English in Milan. And she was an African American. And she told me of some horrendous experiences that she had in Italy of her being discriminated against, especially if she was alone. If she was with other colleagues, then generally they wouldn't, treat her like that. But if she was alone, they would hiss at her and call her a street walker. And yeah, she had a horrendous experience. And she went back and, in fact, wrote an article for the New York Times about what she experienced in Italy. But I'm not suggesting that happens to everybody. I'm simply saying we should not ignore culture shock. We should not ignore discrimination because it does happen. And if it happens to you, as it happened today, I was able to stick up for myself because my language skills were sufficient. But it may be that it's you and your language skills aren't enough. But okay, so the title of this video, Go Back to Your Country. So I think don't see it as a failure. If this is you and you made a decision to go somewhere, there's a big old world out there. You're not once you've made a choice, you're not stuck with that choice forever. You can decide, okay, that suits me better, or It could be wonderful for you. I'm here talking to you from Italy in my home. It could be awful for you, and that's okay. And don't allow other people to gaslight you and say, oh, that's nonsense, because everybody that I've ever heard of who went to Italy loved it and it's wonderful. Don't let people gaslight you and convince you that whatever you experienced in terms of discrimination or culture shock is not a real experience, because it can really, that can make it even worse if people are denying, what happened. And I just mentioned this colleague that I taught with who went back to the States. One of the most hurtful things that she explained to me, and she landed up writing about, was the fact that people would deny that that had been her experience, that she must have done something to them. She must have in some way provoked them. She must have in some way deserved this victim shaming, must have in some way deserved them to have called her these terrible names. I remember when she told me how hurtful it was, and she's been back in the States for many years. She's very happily married now. And whenever she talks about coming to visit Italy again and showing her partner, she's talked out of it, because she said she would hate to be here again and be discriminated against. So I'm just telling you what my experience and the people that I have helped, and my colleagues and my content creators on YouTube experience. So yeah, this may not be your experience, but if this touches any nerve with you, and if you have experienced culture shock anywhere, it may not be in Italy, it may not be in Europe, it may not be in Spain or France, as we've spoken about, or Portugal, wherever it is, could be in any country. It's awful. And please don't, as I mentioned before, be talked out of the fact that you've been discriminated against. You know when you're being discriminated against, and you know when you're unwelcome. And as I said before, go where you're welcome. If it's not working out for you, I know it's a dramatic thing, and maybe you can't just unwind your life in a heartbeat, but don't put up with it for years and be miserable, where you just lose the will to live because you're surrounded by people who aren't supporting you, aren't kind to you, aren't nice to you. It's not worth it. So yeah, when that happens, maybe you need to cut your losses and say, my happiness is more important than me just sticking with a situation that isn't working for me. So anyway, culture shock this evening. So if you watch this back, please leave me a comment. Let me know if you've ever experienced any kind of culture shock, either by living somewhere or going on holiday. I have been in that situation in a city hall in Portugal. Interesting. Sorry, this text is always so small. I have to read it. City hall in Portugal, even though my Portuguese is passable, they just spoke at a more elevated level. Every country has the good, the bad, and the uneducated. Everyone deserves respect, but it can leave a lasting. That's very, very true, Pazzi. Yeah, I agree. And, as I mentioned, a lot of the actions these Spanish locals who are spraying tourists with water, and these placards everywhere saying, go home, tourists, whatever. This is a result of locals feeling there's too much tourism. Italy has recently, the government has looked at imposing a tax. They've already done it in Venice, because Venice has way too many tourists. They have millions of tourists flooding into Venice, and it's having a major impact. In fact, there are no locals living in Venice anymore that are not obviously the rich that own some of the properties, and those that are major business holders there, because it's just too expensive for a local to ever live there. But that's been the case in Venice for many years. The same true of Florence and many of Italy's beautiful cities. Siena, Italy's hugely popular. it's an ongoing problem how to manage this tourism, which is extremely valuable for the GDP of Italy and every country. Spain is no different. France, all these countries in Europe, Portugal particularly, they need the tourist dollar, but at the end of the day, it's a tender trap. So if you experience this extreme tribalism, as I call it, where they tell you to go back to your country, whether you're on holiday or you are looking to move to one of these countries, or you are already living in one of these countries and you're told to go back to your country, be aware of the background of it, but that doesn't mean that it isn't hurtful to you and that you shouldn't perhaps stick up for yourself and just take whatever action you feel will make you happier in your long-term goals, to not be somewhere where you don't feel welcome. Okay, so I think I hope I've covered that well. We've done our time, and it's been lovely having you as company, Paisley. I'm so happy you joined. Shake the dust from your sandals and try another place. So true. So true. So anyway, if you're watching this back and you would like to have some help from me as to finding a house in Italy or settling in Italy or finding out what you need to come and be a resident in Italy, more than happy. My website is there. I'll leave it all down in the description box. You can always send me an email, but please leave me a comment if you watch this back. So from Amanda here in Italy, I hope you enjoyed the little fashion show. If you came in at the end, then you can watch this back and let me know what you think of my tweed jackets. And thank you for joining this evening. And as usual, don't forget to like the video. You can like it up there. Hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And if you hit the little bell, it will tell you when I'm next coming on live. And during the week, I just put up a video of my town in Italy. So it's not always lives. There's quite a few shorts in my YouTube list, so you can go and experience a bit of Italy. And I've also got other travels in France and Spain around there. Okay, so take care. From Amanda here in Italy. Thank you for joining. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye. Bye.